To set the mind on the flesh is death, but to set the mind on the Spirit is life and peace. Romans chapter 8, verse 6. The previous chapter ended with a promise that must now be made good. The Bible, read in its own world, is a blade. It cuts against the grain of what you already are. But something else was said at the close, almost in passing, and it is the whole reason this chapter exists. A blade is only as good as the hand that swings it, and dead ink on thin paper cannot, of itself, cut open a living heart. So, here is the question. Why does it ever happen? Why does a sentence written down 3,000 years ago, in a language you do not speak, by a person you will never meet, suddenly find the exact bottom of your heart on an ordinary Tuesday, and lay it open? Ink does not do that. Paper does not do that. The answer is the second tool, the living mind of God Himself, breathing through the words and breathing in you. This is the tool that does the deep work, and it is the most important thing this book would try to say. Before we say what it is, we must clear away the two things it is not, for almost everyone reaches for one or the other. It is not a force, not an energy one taps into, not good vibes, not a current of power one learns to channel. We talk that way without noticing. I just need to get the power flowing, but a force has no face. It does not know you. It cannot love you, or correct you, or grieve over you. The living God is not electricity. And it is not one's own inner voice wearing a holier accent, the subtler trap, and a more dangerous. We feel a strong feeling, we want something badly, we land hard on an opinion, and we baptize it. The Spirit told me. But your gut is not the Holy Spirit. Your certainty is not the Holy Spirit. More on that danger shortly, for it is the one most likely to deceive. So what is it? It is the living mind of God Himself, the very mind that grew day by day in Jesus of Nazareth, given now to dwell in you. Not a thing, not a power, a living, personal other who knows you, loves you, leads you, can be grieved by you, and is at work in the room as you read. That is who picks up the blade. Here is why one tool was never going to be enough. The word cuts from the outside. It is a blade, and a blade does its work on the surface against the grain, pressing in. But one may be cut 1,000 times, convicted by 1,000 sermons, undone by 1,000 verses, and still not be made new, for a corpse does not heal by being operated on. Surgery on a dead body is only the rearranging of a dead body. Something must make you alive from the inside, where no blade can reach. That is the Spirit's first and deepest work. He gives life. Recall the promise God made to a people who could not keep His law however hard they tried. I will give you a new heart, and a new spirit I will put within you. Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 26. Recall David, in the rubble of his worst sin, begging God to create in him a clean heart, because he knew he could never manufacture one. Psalm 51, verse 10. This is the one who does it. Jesus called it being born of the Spirit. Not improved, not educated, not tidied up, but born, made alive from the inside out. The Word operates on you. The Spirit raises you. And now we reach the thing this whole book has been walking toward since its first page. The same living mind that grew in Jesus, that perfectly received, perfectly clear human mind we met at the end of the road, is the mind now breathed into you, and it grows in you the way it grew in Him, from the inside by the Father, day after day. Paul states it as plainly as it can be put. To set the mind on the Spirit is life and peace. Romans chapter 8, verse 6. Slowly, so slowly that you will often not feel it happening, the chaos of the mind you made up is reordered into the mind He gives, order brought out of chaos. You begin to see what He sees, not because you have at last studied hard enough, but because His mind is being formed in you from within. This is how the most audacious promise in the Bible comes true, the one we have circled since the beginning. We have the mind of Christ. 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 16. Paul says it in a passage that is explicitly about the Spirit who searches the depths of God and reveals them, so that having received not the spirit of the world but the Spirit of God, we have the mind of Christ. Not copied, not imitated, not achieved, received and grown by the living breath of God. But do not expect it all in a flash. The Scriptures say God gave the Spirit to His Son without measure. To us He gave a measure at a time, in installments, the way a child grows into an adult, until we all attain to mature manhood, to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 13. The deep work is therefore slow and quiet and largely unspectacular, and it takes the rest of one's life. This is exactly why 2 chapters ago, your one task was to stay on the bench. You cannot rush the breath. You cannot work it up. It is not an emotion to be whipped up like a pep rally. You can only stay near, stay soft, keep asking, and receive what He gives in the measure He gives it today. The image is worth pressing. The food set out at the king's table was the matter of the last chapter. The word in its ancient cognitive world, its categories, its semantic frame. The Spirit takes that food and works it over the way a ruminant works its cud, again and again, until the pieces of the story are ground fine enough to be built into the very mind He is forming in you, a mind that becomes, piece by piece, just like His own, and yet lives in you as your own. And as He goes, He tests the work of His hands. Now, the honest word, for this book promised never to sell a foolproof machine. And this is the tool where the warning matters most. Precisely because the Spirit works on the inside, He is the easiest of the three to counterfeit. The Word is outside you. You can check it. The body is outside you. They can check you. But the Spirit told me happens in a room with no windows where no one else can see, and so it is the perfect hiding place for the made-up mind. Some of the worst things human beings have ever done to one another were done by people utterly certain that the Spirit was leading them. So, how does one tell the living breath of God from one's own echo bouncing about an empty room? He leaves marks, and not private ones you get to define, but public ones anyone can check. He never contradicts the word He inspired. The Spirit and the Scriptures are one mind. They do not fight. A leading that requires you to explain away the book is not Him. He always points to Christ, never to the self. Jesus said it plainly, "The Spirit will glorify me." A spirit forever making you the impressive one, wiser, more anointed, more right than everyone else, is not the Holy One. He grows the character of Christ in you. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness. Counterfeit spirituality grows something else entirely: pride, suspicion, division, contempt. You will know the tree by its fruit. He does this among His people, not in your head alone, which is the third tool in the next chapter. Notice what those marks accomplish. They take the Spirit told me out of the windowless room and into the light, where the Word and the body can see it too. This is also the precise point at which the Spirit of the Gospel is the opposite of the Gnostic counterfeit, which trades exactly in private, esoteric, unverifiable knowing for an inner circle. Here there is no secret. The genuine Spirit's work is, by design, checkable in the open. That is why this tool, like the last, never works alone. One last thing, and it is the thread running through the whole book. You do not generate the Spirit. You do not summon Him, channel Him, or work Him up by trying harder. You can no more manufacture the living mind of God than David could manufacture a clean heart, which is the whole reason he had to ask God to create one. The Spirit is not a power you operate. He is the craftsman's own hands, reaching into the one place you could never reach yourself and doing the work you were never able to do. Here the chapter's opening warning returns with its full weight. To treat the Spirit as a force to be channeled is not merely a theological error, but a relapse into the oldest reflex of all, the self sourcing its own power, now in spiritual dress. Your part is small, and it is everything. Stay on the bench. Stay near the word. Stay soft. And keep praying the oldest prayer of the receiving heart. Create in me a clean heart, O God, trusting the one who began the work to go on doing it a measure at a time. That is the second tool, and the deepest. The word cuts from outside. The breath makes alive and reforms from within. And together the dead